Right boys, welcome to the 19th video on my channel. So we've ranked the biggest clubs in every single league in the EFL, but we've rejected the fact there are also some massive clubs in non-league football. To think some of these clubs have played in the Championship, had over 100 seasons in the EFL. Football's an amazing game. Today we're going to be ranking the top 10 biggest clubs in non-league this season. Just to clarify, we're going to be considering the whole of the non-league pyramid and not just the National League, like some people thought in my last video. At number 10, we've got Southport FC. When people talk about the biggest clubs in non-league, you think of Carlisle, Southend. But Southport are one name that still stands tall outside the Football League. Yeah, the Sandgrounders might not be in the headlines every week, but make no mistake, they're one of the sleeping giants of non-league football. Founded in 1881, Southport are one of the oldest clubs in English football. That's even before the likes of Liverpool, Chelsea, or even Arsenal. They joined the Football League in 1921 and stayed there for 57 years straight. That's nearly 6 decades of league footballs. That's something most non-league clubs can only dream of. Even in the National League North, Southport regularly closed more than 4 figures for home games, which doesn't sound great, but it's still a serious turnout at this level. In non-league circles, Southport still carry weight. They've got the ex-Football League reputation, the kind of club everyone knows has history. At number 9, we've got Morecambe. And no, we're not going to consider the recent situation they've been in, though you wouldn't wish it on any club at all. They've only had 17 years in the Football League, joining in 2007, which means why the hell have I put them above Southport? I just think recently they're a lot more of a known club in the Football League. Obviously Southport have been in for years, and they were even in League One literally 2 seasons ago. Obviously got a slightly bigger stadium than Southport, fan bases are about equal, but in the last 30-40 years, Morecambe have had far more of an EFL presence. So yeah, at number 8 we've got Torquay United. Established in 1899, Torquay has spent most of their history in the 4th tier, 85 seasons to be exact. That's longer than many current EFL clubs have been alive. Longer than MK Dons, founded in 2004, older than Burton Albion in League One, founded in 1950, AFC Wimbledon, who were also in League One, founded in 2002, and many more. It's safe to say that if Torquay were to go back into the EFL, they'd certainly fit, and they definitely wouldn't be one of the absolute smallest clubs in the EFL, but they're also definitely not in amongst the top 5 biggest clubs in non-league. Yes, I get they are currently in the National League, but they only average 2 to 2,500 per game, which is smaller than the likes of York, Hartlepool or Southend. Torquay is a small town in the south of Devon, which inevitably means the fan base is going to be smaller than city clubs. Decent sized stadium though, with Playmore being a capacity of 6,500, but still nowhere near the biggest ground in the league. It's safe to say they've got a lot more history than 95% of clubs in non-league, but for me, number 8 is their level. On number 7, we've got York City, a club with no doubt one of the biggest budgets in non-league this season. Founded in 1922, York have spent most of their existence as a Football League club. They even reached the FA Cup semi-finals, a lower league club, in 1955, played in the old 2nd division in the 70s, and just off that, why on earth have I not put them higher? Off the pitch, York have one of the best setups in non-league. The LNER Community Stadium is a modern 8,000 seater ground. Attendances are often at least 4,000 per game, but in my opinion there's still bigger clubs ahead. Don't forget, York City has spent a lot of time in non-league now, and obviously it'll be years before they become a forgotten Football League club, but it honestly feels like ages since they were even in League 2. Comfortably bigger than the likes of Torquay and Southport, but not so much when we consider the clubs ahead on this list. On number 6, we've got Yeovil Town. Once the giant killers of the FA Cup, a team that climbed all the way to the Championship, and now back in non-league. Let's start with history. Yeovil Town have been around since 1895, and for decades they were known as the king of the FA Cup giant killing axe. Remember Sunderland 1949? Probably not, but that's where it all began. Safe to say Yeovil became a household name for pulling off shots, but the biggest rise came in the 2000s, from non-league to the Championship in just over a decade. And yes, some may argue the likes of York have spent more time in the 2nd division, but now they're both in the depths of the National League, you get to see how big of a club they really are. Yeovil regularly pulling crowds of over 5,000, which is more than York City, and they've got a pretty big ground for the National League with a capacity of 9,565. Yeovil do come in at number 7, but a bit like York City, even if they do go back up to the EFL, they won't be in amongst the absolute smallest clubs. Like, they'll still be a small club, but they won't be tiny. On number 5, we've got Hartlepool United. Don't know why I said that in a Yorkshire accent, but sometimes it's best to not ask questions. Let's of course start with Football League pedigree. Hartlepool have spent the majority of their history in the Football League, 96 seasons to be exact, and a lot more when you consider the likes of Yeovil have only had 16 in total, and York have had 83 in total. That alone tells you everything. Hartlepool are a Football League club by heritage. Yeovil had the golden decade, fair play. York have been up and down for years, but even though they've been in non-league for quite a few seasons, Hartlepool have been there, done it, and lived the EFL grind longer than both. But there's something about northern fans. Hartlepool fans are built different. York's up north, mate. Okay, but it's not as north as Hartlepool. Even when they dropped out of the Football League, they still average crowds of around 4,000 to 5,000, sometimes more. In the National League, that's top tier loyalty. When they won promotion back to the EFL in 2021, the whole town went mental. Full houses, parades, the works. York and Yeovil have passionate supporters too, but Hartlepool's backing in a working class football mad town is another level. Although not a massive disparity, I'd say Hartlepool are comfortably a bigger club than the teams I've just mentioned. On number 4, we've got Scunthorpe United, the Iron, a club that's been through it all. League One playoffs, FA Cup runs, promotions, heartbreak, and recently, National League North. Scunthorpe have 70 plus seasons in the Football League, but here's the key part. They spent a large chunk of that time at higher levels than the likes of Hartlepool, York or Yeovil, 25 seasons in League One to be exact, compared to Hartlepool's 15 seasons in League One and York City's 12. There's no doubt Scunthorpe are a massive sleeping giant in non-league. Decent fan base, pretty big stadium, and for me, comfortably in and amongst the top 5. And number 3, we've got Rochdale, a proper football club, a name that's been part of the English Football League for over a century. And in fact, out of all teams non-league, Rochdale have the most seasons in the EFL. And the mad thing is, Rochdale were a Football League club for 102 consecutive seasons. 102. You don't get that kind of heritage overnight. The Crown Oil Arena, or Spotland as the locals still call it, is a proper old school ground, over 10,000 capacity, all-seater, and has seen League One football within the last decade. Rochdale support has always been tight-knit, loyal, passionate and proud of the roots. Even after back-to-back relegations, they're still averaging 4,000 to 5,000 fans per game in the National League. A bit like Scunny, but a bit bigger than Scunny in my opinion. Rochdale should not be in the National League. Now moving on to the top 2 biggest clubs in non-league this season. For me, they're both way bigger than the rest. Carlisle United and Southend United. I'll just give a couple of moments silence for the egos that have been hurt if I didn't include your club in this video. Anyway, Carlisle United, founded in 1904 and part of the Football League for over 95 seasons. Southend United, founded in 1906 and spent a ridiculous 101 seasons in the Football League. Purely on longevity, Southend clearly edged that. But we all know the size of a football club is not just about how long you've been there, it's how high you've gone. Carlisle actually reached the top flight of English football in the 1974-75 season. Yes, for one glorious season, the rubbing shoulders of Liverpool, Arsenal and Manchester United. Southend, for all the success, have never gone higher than the second tier. Carlisle won the Football League trophy in 2011, have had countless promotions and spent the late 2000s pushing for the championship. They've beaten big clubs in cups, produced Premier League players and built a proper Football League identity. Southend, they've got their own silverware too. The Football League trophy in 2004, 2 promotions to the championship and that legendary 2006 League Cup night when they beat Manchester United at Roots Hall. Both have tasted success, both have punched above their weight, but there's only one that's played in the top tier and that's Carlisle. But when we talk about fan base and grounds, this is where both clubs absolutely dominate the non-league. Carlisle's Brunton Park is one of the biggest stadiums outside the Football League, 17,000 plus capacity, steeped in history and surrounded by some of the most passionate fans in the country. Southend's Roots Hall, with a capacity of 12,392, is also the second biggest ground in the league. And when you talk about fan bases, these two are as loyal as it gets. Carlisle own the north, of the pride of Cumbria. Southend run the southeast coast, a seaside town that lives and breathes football. 2 proper working class clubs with local pride and decades of support. It's basically a draw here. But here's the thing, both these clubs feel big. When you say Carlisle United or Southend United, football fans across the country know exactly who you mean. These aren't just non-league teams, they're a part of English football's fabric. But in terms of the biggest club in non-league this season, Carlisle slightly edge it for me for the top flight history, the trophies and the one club city pride. But anyway, yeah boys, I'm going to wrap up the video there. I do hope you enjoyed. Let me know what non-league clubs you'd put in your top 10. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. But yeah, see you in the next one.